Where are they, Arthur? I was there for white women. Why can't they support me? Same with black men. Where are they? Regina King knocks it out of the park. Her performance is arresting, engaging. It brings up so many emotions. Shirley ran for president with so many things working against her. Her race was working against her. Her gender was working against her. Money was working against her because of her race and gender. The movie itself explores about six themes, maybe more, but I caught six and I'm going to talk about them. So, of course, we've got intersectionality and the allies who fail you. The sexism that Shirley experienced was racialized. It was because of her race. So there was the race-based sexism, there was the racism. And let's pause at racism because we must. Because what struck me particularly was when Shirley announced her campaign, she had to declare, like Barack Obama had to declare, that she is not going to be the candidate of black people, although she's proud to be black. She is not going to be the candidate of women, although she's proud to be a woman. The requirement to divorce yourself from your identity publicly in order to appease the higher ups, those higher up in the hierarchy who created the system and who benefit the system and who absolutely do identity politics is diabolical and evil. Because in the same race, you have George Wallace. He doesn't have to, and they still don't have to get up on the stage and be like, get up in front of the microphone and be like, I may be white, but I am not the politician of white people. I will not be the president of white supremacy, even though I benefit from it. I will not be the president of white privilege, even though I benefit from it. I will not be the president of the wealthy and the rich corporations, even though I benefit from belonging to that group. Because when you are at higher up in the hierarchy, you don't need to assuage the fears of those below you because the fears of those below you are quite inconsequential. But when you are below and trying to gain the approval, the votes, the whatever of the majority group, you have to promise them that you're not scary. You have to promise them that even if you are willing to say there's racism, you have to speak in a way where you say you're not really going to do nothing about it. Even though Shirley's politics are absolutely influenced by her intersectional identities. She was for women. She was for black people. She was for people of color in general. She was for immigrants because her parents were immigrants. She was for the LGBTQIA community. She was for workers and poor people. Her identities and her reality formed her politics, but she couldn't get up there and be like, and I will make things better for black people, because then the higher ups would be like, oh, hell no. We had the theme of powerful women and their male partners who conditionally support them. That scene when she comes home from DC and has to warm up her own food, not because he fell asleep. He didn't even say like, no, like, let me do it. You rest. Like, you just came from fighting for the masses in DC. No, he's just like, okay, and he walks away. He supported her professionally, but he was not there for her emotionally. When that woman almost lost her life and was scared and needed comfort, he provided none. He was cold. He basically said, that's your fault. There is another story to be told about Shirley regarding her congressional run and that victory, because part of this for me with the husband not knowing much about their private life and real life is I wonder if she became too successful for him. Like, maybe he was cool with like Congress, but you trying to be president, like, just how much that, like, that's a little too much. Like, you're a little too ambitious. So there was that theme. There was also the theme of loneliness. Black people have created a system, the National Black Political Convention, and they are maligning her. They are casting her out because they're putting their support behind McGovern. They are not willing to take her seriously, to listen because of her identity. She was there to support them, but when she wanted to do something, and not just anything, and not just as like this, like, nobody, she had a record, they left her out to dry. You had the white women who left her out to dry. So both groups, which were setting themselves up to be political movers and shakers, systemic movers and shakers, were not willing to use their currency to help her. And we saw with even the two specific individual black men who promised her help turned on her in the end. It's very striking to me in the movie that Shirley is willing to, instead of going to make her case at the Black National Convention, she instead chooses to go speak to the white male like country club people who have never had a single woman speak, to go speak to them to state her case. And I'm thinking it's just something about like maybe like the complete outsiderness of it that's a bit easier to handle than these people who are supposed to be, you know, skin folk and insiders who are choosing to reject her. Her sister rejects her. And I actually think this is where the movie is weak. This is where I would have liked to see more, because I do think the movie did give us a look into Shirley as a person. I think it was good. It was really good, but I still feel like we missed Shirley. We got more of Shirley the politician. That meeting with Muriel in the cafe or whatever, I was looking at a politician. Clearly she's hurt. Regina King is incredible. The tension in her shoulders at all times. But I don't know, like I wish I got to see more of her family dynamic. I wish I got to see her with her family instead of like always at campaign headquarters. Like, does Shirley accept any part in the dynamic between her and her sisters? When Muriel says like, you think you're better than us, is there truth to it? Or is Muriel like totally projecting? And I think loneliness is why loneliness is why she went to see George Wallace after he got shot. The movie plays the forgiving Christian who would campaign to Jesus himself to let a racist in heaven. And that was triggering for me because I just hate it. I hate to see it. She went to visit that man, and I read into it that it was loneliness. Like, here was someone who just went through something that could not be denied. He could not deny this link with her of having his life threatened. He got it worse because he became paralyzed, but so few people experience that. And so he could not deny that. Unlike the Black National Convention, the Black political people who could deny their connection, the white women who could deny her, George was essentially trapped and vulnerable. And I think she went there seeking connection. She went there to be a Christian, but I think it was part of that loneliness. It makes me feel better to read it that way. The final theme we have is hope. First and foremost, she had hope that things could change, namely that people who are at the margins, who are always left out and just pandered to for votes, they could get some real progress from the government with someone like her at the table working on their behalf. And what really drove it home for me wasn't just Shirley, but it was actually the meeting between her and Huey Newton at Diane Carroll's house. You can't be a politician if you don't have hope, unless you're like completely corrupt. But you need hope to do this crap. You also need hope to be a Black Panther. You need hope to be an activist. And the difference just comes from what do you have hope in? So like Shirley had hope in the potential of the political system, and Huey had the hope in the Black Panthers and what they could do, and in Black people just creating their own systems within the system and all that. The hope is in what, and the hope is in how the thing will be done. Shirley breaking down crying after she loses made me cry. To be completely honest, I cried. Like tears rolling down my face because it just felt like finally she was just breaking down from the racism, the sexism, the abandonment, the loneliness, the being a symbol of hope for these college students and all these people who believe in her. Meanwhile, the establishments, plural, are doing everything they can to keep her down. Her sister's telling her, like, you're doing too much, like, you're never gonna get this. Like, she cried, I cried, and even in her loss, and in her, she hasn't even processed her damn grief yet. Oh yeah, also her marriage is shit. And in her loss, she's asking these people, her supporters, who are pissed, to give Dellums grace and to think about the pressures he was under, because she's a Christian, but more than a Christian, she's a Black woman. The movie is great. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars.